There's going to be good days. There are going to be hard days. And I think when you have some leaders where fear wins, they're so worried about all the things that they cheer leadership. And they're like, it's going to be okay. It's like, no, okay. Hey, you deserve to know what's going on here. Here's the deal. Like, we don't know.
Hey, it's Nikki Llewellyn Gregory, and you're on Gut Plus Science. You're in for a fast-paced, storytelling, action item-rich leadership growth experience. I hope you make this podcast a habit. I consider it a leadership mentoring tool. Learning together makes us better together, and that is how we change the world around us. Let's get to it. Hey, it's Nikki back on Gut Plus Science, and today I have a guest with me who was one of People Forward Network's Impact Award winners in 2023. And that's how I got to meet Ryan. And we had a great intro conversation. I was like, we're pretty much going to have a fire episode. Great energy. I know that is coming. And I want to tell you about Ryan. So he is the co-founder of Courageous. He and his team help leaders, team members, and companies brave what is hard. So guess what we're going to talk about today? You got it. Courageous leadership and courage, all the things. I mean, who doesn't want to be a courageous person? So let's just get rolling. Ryan, let's start with having you break this down. This is a leadership podcast. So we'll start with, what is courageous leadership?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on. So courageous leadership to me, think about somewhere where maybe you feel stuck, you feel scared, you feel stale, or you feel safe, like you're playing it safe. And so anytime a leader or a team feels one of those four, we're brought in to jumpstart the team. And it's through workshops, it's through keynotes. I find myself doing a ton of boot camps or summits, and it's all to drive clarity, alignment, and true togetherness across the team.
And I need to go and learn more about like your company and what you do, because I just love that tagline that I found that I used in that introduction, like helping to brave the hard. And it's like, how many people, like I work to impact meaningful work. And so many times we're stuck on our own terms because we're scared or just not willing to take the risk or whatever that may be. And we're causing that, right? So we're going to help people today, like overcome that one thing. Like, what's that one thing that you're stuck on? So thank you for the courageous leadership understanding, because this is really a leadership podcast. But when we go a little deeper, how do you define courage?
Yeah, super, super solid question. One that sent me down the rabbit hole on my book, which is Return on Courage. And to me, it wasn't a soapbox book. It was imagine I wrote a documentary, if that makes sense. I had questions that I needed answered. And the very first question that really looked at the definition of courage. And if you look at the dictionary definition of courage, it's the ability to do something that frightens you. And it kind of struck me the wrong way. Like there's sort of two big sort of hiccups or speed bumps with that definition. First, I don't know that many people. And look, if you're listening to this show, it already says something about you. You're probably in the minority that you are down to take on the hard stuff, things that scare you. But a lot of people don't want to do frightening things, let alone do frightening things at work. So that was the first, like, hey, how can this really be the definition of courage? And the second component was, where's the utility in spotting, hey, this is the time where I should be courageous. So imagine courage like a currency. You can't spend it all on every project. You'd exhaust yourself. So picking the right projects, I wanted to come up with a different definition that could help leaders and teams go, oh, hey, this is a moment where we should be a little bit more brave. We should be a little bit more courageous. And so we look at three separate levers. The three levers are knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage. And, you're never going to have every bit of knowledge you need to make a call. And this sometimes upsets the data folks. But if you wait for 100% of the data, you're probably going to get passed by a competitor you see, frankly, you don't see. And so that's why we need faith. And when we talk about faith, we don't mean it so much in the religious sense. We mean it in the inner belief sense. We mean it in the conviction sense. And usually the more knowledge you get on a topic, the more your faith grows as well. But how often have you known the exact right move to make and you felt it was the right move, and yet for some reason, there's no leap. The team, we never go anywhere. And so you need that third lever of action for it to be courageous. And 2 of 3 in any direction is actually something else. Nikki, knowledge and faith without action is paralysis. Faith and action without knowledge is a reckless move. And then knowledge and action without faith, if you're feeling numb on the inside. Like, think about when you started this show. You're probably like a little nervous. That's the faith. The minute that goes numb and you've got knowledge and you've got action, but maybe you're feeling numb, you're probably working on status quo or you're working on safe. So knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage. And we say at Courageous, we're comprised of think, feel, do, creative business consultants. The knowledge is the think, the faith is the feel, and the action is the do. It's the thinking, the feeling, and the doing that makes up a courageous act.
That is good. Really good. And about 5 different storylines came to mind. And I was like, Nikki, we only have so much time. So where are we going to go with this one? But I could not love that definition more. And I just recorded an episode with my husband reflecting on a BHAG goal, big, hairy, audacious goal that we've been working on since June of 21 and the journey to get there. And I think that the key message that came out of that was, if you know you are meant for more and you don't go at it, you will always live with this pit in your stomach that you can't get rid of. Because the story that we shared, it's like, it was not a pretty road. It was broken. There were a lot of potholes. But if we didn't do that, if we didn't keep going through some of those massive breaks and potholes, like, I just know what can creep in, like, for me, which is like, I get depression symptoms. Like, it's because I'm like, I know this is here. And so why am I not taking action? Why do I not have the faith? What do I need to do to get the knowledge? Right. Because we got one shot. Like, I love Eminem and, lose yourself. We got one shot, and we got to go for it. Right. So, okay, we're going to break this down, Ryan, now that we've got this definition, and let's talk for a minute about what holds us back from being courageous. Obviously, like, on the opposite side of, like, lack of knowledge, lack of faith, lack of action. Right. But tell us just a little bit more for the listeners that are like, okay, I need to do a self-reflection here. What's holding me back?
Yeah, look, this is very simple. This is just fear. It's just fear. And I think it's our relationship with fear. And I think when we don't realize that fear, right? What is it? False evidence appearing real, which is, so that's the acronym for fear for some. There's this famous proverb that fear and courage are kin. You actually can't get to the courageous move without channeling it through fear. And especially in corporate America, we have a lot of little lines of courageous shock, right? But like, one of the things we talk about is, until we've turned corporate America back into courage America, we still have work to do. And I think corporate America does get a bad rap now. Like, why is corporate America getting a bad rap? They've got time, they've got resources, they've got budget. Like, this should be a good thing here. And somehow it's turned into a negative. And to the spirit of not spiraling, you think about all the fear that permeates through cultures. And you and I get to interview a lot of different people from a lot of different verticals. Fear breeds fear. When you walk into a culture and like the necks have gone away and people are afraid to speak. And on the other side, courage breeds courage. The people that you're probably bringing on this show are the ones that are creating the environments where people can experiment, where people can play, where they can address fear versus suppress fear. And even to your story that you just shared about you and your husband, I always say courage is regret insurance. And you think about like a moment where how do you avoid that regret that comes into your mind? And to me, usually what's in the way of feeling that is you've actually overcome or shrunk down a fear. So courageous, the big idea is to be fear fighters. Like, let's actually hunt down the largest fear inside the organization or as a leader inside your mind. And to your point, if you keep waking up and there's an idea in your brain, it's there for a reason. Like, you will not let go of that idea for a reason. This is the universe doing what I'm not going to pretend to understand. I just understand if I've had the same idea for 3 years and I keep trying to bury it, and then I wake up and I'm thinking about it, right? This is the potholes part. You've got to go through the potholes. And so this is why I love this sort of courage as regret insurance. When it's all said and done, did you go on the adventure that you were supposed to? Did you actually tackle the things you were supposed to? That's the beauty of courage, but you got to go through the fear first.
So good. So much there too. Just like in the understanding that the grand universe has an amazing plan. Like, what's that quote? The best days, or the most powerful days, or whatever, are the day you're born and the day you find out why. And why would we not ever go to figure out why, right? If they're saying the day you're born, the day you find out, it's like, hello, and then that pursuit, even when we find out why, the courage journey is super long, right? Like, I mean, it's a journey, whatever, long, strong, whatever, but it's a journey. And so,
Someone said to me, it takes you 40 years to figure out who you are, and the next 40 to be that person. We've just said the same thing differently, but I think that's what it is. It's like, when do you start getting intentional and have awareness? Like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. This is why I moved to New York City. This is why, even after that life, I moved to California. I knew like two people. This is why I ended up becoming an entrepreneur. Like, I keep throwing myself into these moments. I don't know why I kept doing it. And so as you run that story for yourself, this is why, this is why, this is why. It's like, oh, this isn't just this is why, this is who I am.
yes, I love that. Let's talk about the mindset shift and kind of break that down for a minute. So a couple of things just as we're talking that I'll throw on the table is, we have to believe we can. We have to believe in ourselves, right? So much of this is the work on ourselves. The direct impact of everyone around you and how you show up is how much time you have spent working on yourself. So our belief about ourselves. And then the other thing that you shared a minute ago is fear breeds fear and courage breeds courage. So a mindset shift of, like, I need to be around other people that are builders, not terror downers or whatever. So add on to that. Like, what is the mindset shift?
You kind of nailed it, though. It starts with looking back at yourself. So, funny enough, the very same person that shared with me, it takes you 40 years to figure out who you are in the next 40 to be that person. Her name was Loretta Hidalgo. She's a founding astronaut at Virgin Galactic. Also, one of my first in person interviews for Return on Courage. And she said that her definition of success is when there's no daylight between the personal you and the professional you. And that was the one that got me driving back in silence for 2 hours, like me and my knuckles in the 10 and 2 position in the car, no music, realizing this book I thought I was writing as a positioning tool. I was like, oh, shoot, I'm writing the book because I need the book. Like, I need to figure out why I'm telling the story. And I think it is all mentality. And just to bring this back to, hey, if I'm a leader of a team and I'm going to think about my team, because we're tiptoeing close to that time of the year where 2025 planning begins. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to go on hiatus for summer, and then we're going to start planning for 2025. And what I think most people do is they start with goal setting. Like, what are we going to do for 2025? What's our big goals? And then the next thing we usually do is we look at skill set. Hey, who's the right person to take on and apply these three? And what gets left behind is the mindset. It's the mindset to see those through. So we do the goal set and the skill set, but the stuff's hard. Like you said, there's going to be potholes. It's not going to be just a straight, easy, smooth shot. Especially if you're truly doing something courageous and innovative, you're going to run into people that are like, well, that's how we've always done it here, right? Well, that's how we do things here. And I think that's where we need to brave what's hard. And so when we talk about braving what's hard, that hard stuff, most want to back away from it. Most don't even know where to get started. And I think many people are scared by it. And you have to have the mentality, knowing you're going up against people that are going to probably want to move away from a hard or necessary conversation. That means you need to step into it. And if we're going to unlock our greatness at work and maximize our team's potential, it actually starts by braving what's hard and taking on the hard stuff. And think about the mindset you're going to need to go through that. That's where it all starts.
So, Gut Plus Science, the show, and then also my company, People Forward Network, were born under the same mission, which is to help all people experience meaningful work. I believe that we spend so many hours working, and the energy either provides for us to be amazing in all of these other areas, or at least gives that potential, right? Because if you're in a place that your work is just draining you, I've been there. It's just like you're around people that are like, the fear breeds fear or whatever, like that negative. It's pulling you away from being great everywhere else. Like, you're not volunteering because you don't have the energy. You're not spending more time with friends. Like, you're not, all the things, right? So I was just thinking about, the prioritization of culture. And I think sometimes it's a check the box where it's like, yep, we're doing that because we want to have a great culture here. And when you start to see that truly like honoring people first and like who they are and their roles and making sure mindsets are aligned and all that. And you build this amazing team that has a lot of courage and is ready to brave together. I would almost put that in there as like you talked about regret insurance. It's almost like your business insurance or your path to peace as a leader, because you get to this place where when you have people that you're like, well, we braved enough potholes and you guys are in, like nobody's leaving. We're here. Like, I'm not scared. Like, whatever's going to happen, it's like we're being guided. First of all, we are going to hit some more bumps, but I don't have the fear that I used to have when I didn't have the team. And so when you're on this team that you're like, we'll just figure it out. We got it. Like, it might suck, but we'll figure it out. It's just such a beautiful thing. And that is why people first and culture matter so much.
Well, I'll go back to the sort of the trigger word for me of all this was your mission statement on meaningful work. So to me, meaningful work in my getting to meaningful work, in my opinion, is the cherry on top. It's the destination. Like the courage is needed in the messy journey part, right? Like you don't get to meaningful work if you don't have the courage to go on the journey and get there. And to your point, this is not a DIY thing. This is a DIT thing. This is a do it together thing. Like good luck. I mean, again, I'm not here to create more fear for people, but think about all the competitors that are trying to like take your share or figure it out. Now, it's not personal in some ways. They're just trying to live their lives too, right? But if your whole team is on the same page, if they're not willing to like all be courageous and hold hands, that's the multiplier. So, Nikki, you think about how you started. If it was just you, how exhausting that would be. And it does start with one. I have this like bubblegum hallmark slide that I end a lot of my presentations with that says you, two, few, crew, slew. It starts as you, something as controllable as you, to having the courage to have like a closed door conversation with somebody. And maybe it's one person. For you, it might have been your husband. And it might have been like, hey, is this messed up? I think it's messed up. Okay, I'm not crazy, right? This seems like this could be better, right? Yes. Okay, then it goes from two to crew, and it's like 4 or 5 people on it together. And then, hey, let's create a process here. Let's reward this behavior here. Let's create the courageous award. And then it moves into crew. And it's not just like that thing that, oh, Nikki, it's every month we got to have that meeting. And Nikki, 6 months later, after 6 people have won the award, like, I want to win that award. And it becomes a crew. And then finally, the entire culture comes around and it's like, oh, this is a slew. And the definition of a slew is an uncontrollable movement. So something is controllable of you going and saying, can I have 5 minutes, closed door meeting? Is this messed up? No, we need to change this to something way bigger than yourself, which is what a courageous culture looks like, right? That's the amazing thing. Something so controllable turns into an uncontrollable movement when you get it right. And it takes one courageous leader to start that action. And I think when you get that, you're on this path for truly meaningful work. And then to your point, doesn't matter what the pothole looks like. If you have the right team, they'll take on that pothole.
It's a beautiful thing. And when you're in that, the experience, like I said earlier, the word peace, because you just trust, like you've got the right people and it'll all work out. And you can't, and when you don't have people rowing in the same direction, operating under similar mindsets, like yes, like there's something grander here and all that. But when you're not surrounded with the right people, it's real hard to trust that all is going to work out because you didn't spend the time like building the infrastructure, which is our part. It's like, whatever way we look at this, it's like, we don't just sit around. It's like, yeah, the door's open. You got to be looking and hearing, right? And do the things, like, which is going back to your action. But okay, so you said something on our last call. Leadership and courageous leadership should be synonymous. I agree. I want to hear your take on that.
Well, I think sometimes leadership turns into cheerleadership, and we rah rah with our teams. And like, if you've hired really smart people, they can smell when you're BSing them and when you're not. I think what people want is the real. Like, I'm curious your take on this, by the way. I always get I get in arguments on this topic. Uh, what's your take on the word real, keeping it real versus being authentic? Because I almost feel like when you say being authentic, you're actually not being real. But anyway, like, does that make sense?
It does.
Like, I'm just gonna keep it real with my team. I'm just gonna keep it real with my team. I'm not gonna, there's gonna be good days. There are gonna be hard days. And I think when you have some leaders where fear wins, they're so worried about all the things that they cheer leadership. And they're like, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna, it's like, no, okay, hey, you deserve to know what's going on here. Here's the deal. Like, we don't know. This is messy. We don't have time to like not have this conversation, and I'm all ears and open for any solutions. I think just because you're the leader doesn't mean you have all the answers. And so I wish leadership was more like courageous leadership. And sometimes you see the rah-rah cheerleadership that sort of tiptoes into it. And again, I'm also the type of person that once a word loses its meaning, I'll make up a word. I'm a writer first. So like one of my favorite words, fictitious word, is believership. And I think the sole goal of leadership is believership. And you even make believers or fake believers. And fake believers don't walk around the office with a t-shirt that says fake believer. They just nod and smile and collect the paycheck. And then you walk away and they roll their eyes and then they start messing with the rest of the team. And you wonder why toxicity has taken over the organization. So I think leadership also isn't just one person's job. It's the believership's job, right? And you even make believers as a team, either make believers as a team or something else is happening. So I like the idea of, hey, we need to repair this word. This is exactly what's needed right now. But how do you bring people along where they could say, hey, sometimes it's a messy big project or messy big problem. We're going to tackle this thing together. We believe in each other, and that's what believership is.
I was starting to think, have you ever heard of Karpman's drama triangle, the victim, rescuer, persecutor? It's like our default until we work on ourselves, like, and it'll all sneak back in. But we're either naturally a victim, a rescuer, or a persecutor. And when you said that about you basically you're talking about posturing, like when like when you're not real and you're like posturing, right? All you're doing is really being a grand rescuer because the cheerleader is, you're taking on everybody else's stuff. And then you go home and your family dinner table situation is pretty terrible because of the energy and just all that you're carrying, right? Where it's like keeping it real is really one of the healthiest things that you can do for yourself as a leader, let alone doing that for your people so they get the real deal and you're all in it together, believership oriented, right? But like all you're just piling the rocks in your backpack if you're taking on that posturing. It's a terrible place. I've done it. And I was just speaking from example. So I know the drill.
I think we've all done it. We've all done it, and it's like pretend CEO or pretend leader. It's like you think it's not you don't mean to be pretend, but to your point, it was also much easier before remote work to say what I'm about to say. But I think when we all had offices, there you would drive to work, and there's some imaginary line where real you left, and whoever you thought professional you showed up, and then you're like, well, this is who I have to be at work. It's like suddenly you're buttoned down in khakis for guys. It's like, and the same thing happens on the drive home. And you're right. I think well stated. It's like a backpack of rocks, and who gets the worst of it? You and your family. There's a moment for me in my last, this is my fourth creative business that I've started. And in my last creative business, just a lack of alignment on my partners and I. And I just wrote about this on LinkedIn, and it was about rejection. In some ways, I had rejected the way that they thought about the world, and they had rejected the way I thought about the world. If I was like, we're going left, they're like, no, we got to go right. If I'm like, time to invest, they're like, no, we got to lock down. Like everything was this behind closed doors. And so the culture could feel the tension. And I had half the culture following the way I thought we should go, and half the culture was following the way they thought they should go. The fact is, we realized like it does not who's right or wrong. It's just not a good fit. So I finally like took the rocks out of the backpack. It's like, fired myself from that world to start courageous. This is a true story. And I get to keep it real and be myself every day now, which is it took a long time to get there. That's where we are now.
Well, and that was probably pretty darn courageous for you to take that backpack off, right? Like, cause you're in partnership. You spent, I know what the drill's like in building businesses and, partnerships and all of that. And it's real hard to break up and it's real hard to close the chapter. And, how many times are people sitting out there and the longer that you stay in a place that is stifling and soul sucking and you can see the writing on the wall, like it is not worth it. It's like why not go try the new thing to see, what are you going to do? Win or fail? Well, what if you fail? It's going to be better than you did before. At least you took the risk to try it. So it's like if your life sucks right now the option is to make a change, it could only get better, right? Like it can only get better. So why not go try something else? So yeah, Ryan, we could talk all day. So you're going to help me right now to like wrap this up before our lightning round in the next 5 minutes. So first, I would just want to revisit your definition of courage, which is knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage, right? And this is a thinking, feeling, doing thing. And then I want you to tie in what you do at Courageous, like the work that you do, just to make sure that people really understand that. If you just gave us the cliff notes of, okay, how you all build courageous leaders, kind of give us that overview and then walk us into just like the things that people could engage with you for at Courageous.
So imagine two doors to walk through. So one is courageous leadership, which I would say are unlock the potential of the leader of the team. So that's offsites, that's keynotes, that's courage boot camps, it's coaching, it's summits. And then there's change missions. So often what's happening now, and this unlock the potential of the brand or the business. So if there's like a high visibility, high impact, can't miss mission that you absolutely need to nail, it moves then into the consultancy part of the firm. Imagine us like a special forces that helps you figure out and pinpoint and bring to life your special. And I know this is going to be very surprising to you. There's a knowledge gathering phase, there's a faith building phase, and there's an action taking phase. So everything we do is always through the lens of courage. This isn't like some definition that gets left in a book. I've got a knowledge partner, I'm the faith building partner, and then we have an action taking partner. And so everything we do is through those lenses. And when it comes to the truly hard stuff and there's a mission, we kind of kick down the door for you and hold your hand and walk through the door. Overall, I'd say for a company being called Courageous, I don't know if we're really in the clarity business. You know what I mean? It's like, are you clear headed or are you cloudy headed? I mean, I don't think you could be courageous when you're cloudy. And I understand why, like the number one value of at courageous is sacrifice. So what we'll see for a lot of companies is that we've got 10 priorities in 2024. Have you prioritized the priorities? Right. I just don't think you can, can't see a North Star on a cloudy night. Can't see a lighthouse through the fog. And so you can't be courageous when you're cloudy. And so like that is really what we do is help you make those hard choices and get super clear on what's important and start to operationalize those things across the business or in the market.
That's so good and so powerful. Like as you were just sharing a number of those examples, I was like, yeah, that's a game changer. Game changer. Like it's like changed your world when you apply those kinds of things. I want to head over to our lightning round. So we always ask this one question: what is your favorite book of all time, or a favorite recent read?
Great question. I will tell you, and what a surprise! I'm going to give you two answers. Way to say sacrifice is my number one value at the business, and then not sacrifice. But I'd say on the business side, by far, my favorite read in a while is Originals, and it's Adam Grant's book, and I think we're 3 books back at this point, but it's just so good. He studies how to predict circus acts. He talks about this in the book, and he looks at who is best to predict a positive circus act in the future. And the study looked at Cirque du Soleil performers and managers, and his answer, like basically the performers knew best, not the managers, so long as it wasn't their own act, which I think is pretty interesting. And then anything that Nelson DeMille writes, this is like when I go on vacation mode and I just need a break from studying. This is not a business book. So Nelson DeMille, he's more in like the military, like he's got this one character, John Corey, who's like CIA terrorist. So when I need to like just break, like go away from our world, I go into Nelson DeMille's world, and I love all of his books.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that. And so writing, to go along the line here, like you like writing, tell us about the current writing project on your plate.
There's a few, but the one I think you're referring to, it's been an honor to work with Landon Donovan, who is probably I'd say he's podium all-time U.S. soccer player for the U.S. national team. I've been writing Landon Donovan's memoir which we'll have ready for the 2026 World Cup, which will be here in the U.S. And it's a great story. It's not just about the rise of U.S. soccer or Landon's role in that, but I mean, he also, there were some depressing moments, and his therapist really did save his life, and he talks about that pretty rawly and openly in the book.
Well, we'll all look forward to reading that when it comes out. Sounds like a very real, book. So that's awesome. Okay, give us a quick rundown of the celebs that you've worked with, because like we were talking about something, I was like, I mean, people like want to know this stuff. It's fun. So tell us about some.
Yeah, so my background, I mean, I came from advertising. I mean, I came from story. I learned in New York City and had the opportunity to shoot commercials with some pretty cool people. I mean, William Shatner, Jamie Presley, John Stamos is on that list. Landon's obviously on that list, and it's been quite a journey. We'll say that. Randy Moss, that was pretty cool. Throwing a football with Randy Moss and like shooting hoops with Randy Moss was pretty fun as well.
That's so cool. Okay, Ryan, where is your favorite place in the world?
I mean, I'm going to blow you away with this answer. I really am. Like mind-boggling moment. My favorite place is Delaware.
Okay. I've never been to Delaware. I want to go. It's been on my list. I've never been.
You and 332 million other Americans. I mean, it's so I grew up in Maryland and I live in Southern California now. And still, every July 4th, we fly to Bethany Beach in Delaware, which is where my family goes every July 4th. So this is nostalgia at play. This is my cousins, all the cousins being together, all the family being together. It's just 10 days of like laughing and catching up. And Delaware as a whole, USA Today always puts out their like top 10 secrets, like of places that nobody knows about in the US. Delaware's always in the top three because nobody takes it. This is Wayne's World's fault. When Wayne's World came out and there's the scene with the green screen, like we're in Delaware. And so people never take it seriously. And I think I'm okay with that.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've got a system for like everything. That's one thing that I always like to share because I'm happy to share with anyone the systems. I'm obsessed, but one of them is all of my vacation planning stuff. And Delaware is going on in here because I'm taking action rather than just talking about it when someone says something. I'm like, this is going on the list right now. So that's awesome. This has been amazing. I hope to do many more things with you. I do want you to let people know how can they stay in touch. Tell them about your show. What's the best way to connect with you? All the things.
First of all, thanks for having me on the show. So cool getting to know you and two peas in a pod. Like, I think it's so important that we share what we're thinking, and it can be very lonely to be the leader. So, like, wildly commend you for what you've built here and what you keep growing and playing around with. Uh, I would say the best place to find me is ryanberman.com, especially if you've made it this long. If like you've really stayed here for the whole 30-minute episode, there's something that we talked about that resonates with you. One of the things I do is I put out it's a weekly dose of courage. It's like a little nudge. It's just like a nudge in your inbox, and you can get to that at ryanberman.com and sign up for that newsletter. And it comes into your email, and I think it's every Thursday is when it goes out. So ryanberman.com is probably the best place. Second, I'd say LinkedIn. Just find me there, Ryan Berman, founder of Courageous. We have another sort of weekly dose that goes out there for Friday, which is just a tint more on the business side. And then if you're truly like, oh, this special forces seems interesting, I'd say go to couragebrands.com and you can see, the type of work that we do, my partners, and again, how we're trying to actually take on where you might be stuck, scared, stale, or playing it safe.
That's awesome. I just signed up for the weekly dose of courage. So, for those of you listening, it takes 1 second. I just did it. Okay. Well, Ryan, thank you again so much. And I'll look forward to meeting up someday when I'm in one of my favorite cities, which is San Diego. So, thank you again.
Or when you're in Delaware.
Ryan, thank you so much for sharing your heart and mission and fire, all of the things around courageous leadership. Just such a great episode. So here's my truth you can act on. Number one, courageous leadership is pushing through, embracing the hard, and taking risks. So let's all go do more of that. Number two, the definition by the dictionary about courage is the ability to do something that frightens you. But Ryan's definition, knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage. It's the thinking, feeling, and doing. Love that definition. Number three, remember the only thing that's holding you, me, back is fear. Number four, we are who we surround ourselves with, and fear breeds fear, and courage breeds courage. So, to build more of a community or group or alliances around what it is that you want versus what you don't want, I'd say Ryan would tell us spend more time around courageous people. Courage breeds courage. Number five, courage is regret insurance. Oh, I love that quote. So powerful and it's so true. Number six, believership. Love that word. This is bringing people along and in the real. Believership. Bringing people along and in the real. Oh, so good. I'm going to use that this week. And number seven, prioritize building courage for you and for your team members. So, what are you doing to invest in your growth in courage, knowledge, faith, and action? And then, what are you doing to lead that and offer things for your team members to do the same? And watch yourselves become an unstoppable force as a team. Let's go. Thanks, Ryan. See you next time, guys. We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.